Georgia football and Kirby Smart have kind of elected not to do this, not to participate in this trend that is currently going on in college football with all of the changes that have happened to the landscape of the sport, and that is add a GM, a general manager, to the football program. What is it? What is a general manager? What's a GM? If you're not familiar, this is something that is very common in college sports, or in pro sports, right? So like NFL teams, NBA teams, they have general managers. These are the people that work in the front office. They are essentially in charge of putting the roster together, helping put the coaching staff together, making those types of decisions about the football team, making financial decisions about the football team or the basketball team or the baseball team, whatever it is. So college football, there's money involved out in the public. There was always money involved, but now that money is out there in the public. These deals are public. They are sanctioned. They are allowed, right? Gunnar Stockton's allowed to go get a deal with Ford if they want to get him a new truck instead of that old pickup truck he has, which I don't know if it's a Ford or not, but you get my point. Then they can do that. Georgia can facilitate those deals. Georgia can pay Gunnar Stockton or whichever player it is. That's what's out in the open, and that's why general managers are getting hired. There is more roster turnover. There is money. There is the transfer portal, and there's a reason why college coaches are not as excited about being head coaches in college as they were before. There's a reason why college coaches are going to the NFL and are okay being coordinators instead. There is so much more on a college head coach's plate than there was before, and NFL coaches don't have to do this unless they're super involved. But think about Kirby Smart and the job that he has in keeping this roster together in this day and age of college football. Different teams are attacking it in unique ways. Clemson doesn't really participate in the transfer portal as much as other schools. Oregon participates in it a lot. Georgia wants to focus on high school recruiting, right? While also dipping into the transfer portal. Kind of a combination of the two at some of these other big-time schools, but that's what Georgia's focus is on. And would it make sense for Georgia to have a GM? Josh Brooks, the athletic director, and Kirby Smart himself would kind of tell you that it doesn't make sense for Georgia. So let's get into it. I'll bring you a couple of quotes, and we could talk about how different it is for Georgia. And the roster that you will see on the field for Georgia this season will 100% reflect the changes in college football. Those are a couple things that are on deck for the next few minutes that we're going to discuss. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. Please go home and discuss with your family signing up for the Dawg Post newsletter. It's free. All you need to do is drop your email in that link. Go to dawgpost.com to check it out. It's more important that you're just checking out dawgpost.com, right? The site is the heart. These are the limbs. These are legs. This is the brain. I don't know how you want to put it. I don't have an analogy at the ready for you. So teams like Notre Dame, teams like North Carolina, teams like Oklahoma. Oklahoma hired Jim Nagy to be their general manager. That's old Senior Bowl director, former NFL scout. They're getting these types of players. They're for the scouting department, right? Takes a little bit off of the head coach, and for roster management, they're getting these types of people. USC's got one. Nebraska's got one. I believe Purdue has one. Josh Brooks, the athletic director for Georgia, trusts Kirby. This is something that he recently had to say about his head coach. Bear with me for a second. I've got a few different things pulled up. So I think first of all, you have to know the term gets thrown around a lot and it means different things at different places. So there's not just one cookie cutter way to do this. He also said we have a highly intelligent, highly involved head football coach, talking about Kirby, and we have a great support staff underneath him, and I think we have a phenomenal executive staff when you talk about the people on my staff that work directly with him. We've been together a long time. I've been working with Coach Smart now 9 years, and now I'm a fifth-year AD with him who has staff members who have been with him for 4 or 5 or 6 years. So there's a lot of great continuity there. So I don't think any of us want to just bring someone in from the outside and say, you're the GM, lead us. Because look, it is a big-time leadership position, and the truth is Kirby Smart is like as close as you can get to a general, a dictator. Like these are broad ways to put it. Supreme leader, however, the chancellor of Georgia football. He's not just the head coach. He is the GM as well. He is the I was about to use the word king. I'm not going to call him a king, but those other things, the president, all of that, he takes on that role. He's proud of that role. He's proud to manage Georgia, proud to lead Georgia, and I think that, yeah, when you're talking about bringing in a GM, that is Kirby Smart handing one of the keys to, in his big garage of cars, that's handing over the keys to one of them and saying, hey, yeah, you go and you drive, you do this for a little while. That's taking a little bit off of Kirby's plate that Kirby wants control over. I don't know that it's fair to me to say that Kirby's a control freak. I don't know if he is or not. But from my perspective, it seems like he has at least some of those qualities. And I think that his grinded out mentality and this is going to be my way type of mentality has brought Georgia really, really far. They've won national championships. They've won Rose Bowl, Peach Bowl, Sugar Bowl. They've won SEC championships. They're doing things in a way that is a little different at some of these other schools. And I just, I have a hard time seeing Georgia hire a GM. When you think about the landscape of this coming season for Georgia, it reflects the changes, like I said a couple minutes ago, in college football. 10 transfers brought in. That is the most that Georgia has brought in ever in a cycle. Right? They brought in a handful before. They brought in a couple before. They brought in 10 this time, and I think at least a few of them are going to be starters. They're going to be actual impact players on this football team. Ella Madozie, probably a starter. The edge rusher from Army. Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, starters at receiver. They brought in 3 defensive backs. I think at least one of them is going to compete for a starting job. They brought in Josh Horton, a defensive lineman that is likely going to be in the defensive line rotation for Georgia. They brought an offensive lineman that might be in the rotation. They brought in a running back in Josh McCray, who I don't see why they brought him in if they didn't bring him in to get carries on this football team. So that's different. You'll probably see some freshmen play. I think you'll see some freshman defenders play. I think Elijah Griffin will crack the defensive line rotation. I think Isaiah Gibson, Darren Anagbon have an opportunity to crack the defensive end outside linebacker rotation. I think that Georgia's got deep receivers. They brought in 3 really good freshman receivers. I think one of them, like Taylon Taylor, might crack the rotation a little bit. Bo Walker, true freshman, might crack the rotation. Georgia doesn't want freshmen playing. Kirby doesn't want freshmen playing. Now it happens. Malachi Starks happens. KJ Bolden happens. Nate Frazier happens. They happen because the players are skilled, and they happen because there are needs at certain positions. Freshmen are probably going to play a little bit more and a little bit more, and transfers are going to be brought in to be starters. I don't think Kirby would want to hand the keys over to a Jim Nagy, hand the keys over to a former NFL scout and say, hey, you go and find and you pick the players and you bring them in. Because Kirby wants this to be his football team, and he wants ultimately that control at the end of the day. So I don't really see Georgia doing this, and that's kind of the verbiage you're getting from the program. I want to bring you some quotes directly from Kirby about this, and I'll send you on your way. Kirby said, we have a lot of people. This is something he said back in the spring during spring football. This is something he was asked about, by the way. He said, we've got a lot of people in charge of our roster management, including myself, including our football operations staff that is involved, our operations and player development, our personnel staff. Everybody gets involved. It's a team effort. We've reorganized and restructured some things in terms of what falls under whose duty and whose aspects, but at the end of the day, I'm not ready to run off and go hire somebody that's just going to make all the decisions for what goes on the football field. I think I've got to stay involved in that heavily. We've got the capacity and the quality of people in the areas that I think we need, so I think we'll be fine in that world as it changes. Now, something that I'd be curious about is how much involvement does Kirby have in that financial conversations? You know what I mean? Like, think about Jared Curtis, for example. He's gonna be given a pretty penny to play football at Georgia. How much of the conversation did Kirby entertain, do you think, about money? He told us back in the spring that he hears kids out about it, but usually he writes them off the list when he believes that that's a primary concern of the player. But look, Jared Curtis could have probably played for more money at Oregon and probably at some other places, and he chose Georgia. And That says a lot because Georgia's not going to pay players as much as some other schools are going to, and you take a discount to go play at a Georgia. But these are things that Kirby has to worry about when recruiting players. And I kind of think even more so he doesn't want someone else doing it because he wants to weed out the character of some of these young kids because the character matters on his football team. Don't think Georgia will be hiring a GM to do these things anytime soon. Thank you for watching. Links are below.